Imagine stepping outside your front door, right? And it's the middle of July.
Just blazing hot out.
Exactly. The heat is stifling. The sun is just beating down on you. But uh, when you look down at your lawn, there's a thick layer of frost just coating the grass.
Which makes zero logical sense.
Right. Now, imagine someone coming up and telling you that this frost isn't, some bizarre meteorological anomaly. It actually happened because your neighbor, right next door, is holding onto this bitter, unresolved grudge.
Yeah, that is a wild concept to wrap your head around.
It really is. I mean, we usually think of the mind as a byproduct of brain chemistry, right? Like it's a private, sealed-off little room inside your skull.
Just a place where your thoughts live.
Exactly. A place where your secrets are kept safely away from the physical world. But today, we are blowing that fortress wide open.
We really are. It's a complete inversion of how modern society understands consciousness.
So for this deep dive, we are exploring a fascinating set of Eastern philosophical and spiritual teachings.
Specifically drawn from ancient visual manuscripts and the teachings of a figure known as Sangjinim.
And just to be clear right up front, we aren't walking through these sources to endorse them as absolute religious dogma,
Right. We're here to unpack the mechanics of it.
Yeah, the incredibly intricate mechanics of a worldview where the human mind is not a closed container at all. Instead, it is an active, physical gateway that directly manipulates the fabric of nature, the climate, and, honestly, your ultimate destiny.
And what's really interesting is that almost all major spiritual traditions focus heavily on the mind. Like in Buddhism, there's the concept of brightening the mind to see one's true nature.
Oh, yeah. Or in Confucianism, where you have this intense focus on preserving the mind and cultivating character.
Exactly. It's always about the inward journey. You meditate, you look inside yourself, you find peace. But this framework,
It completely flips that on its head.
it violently thrusts that journey outward. It argues that the universe itself, the weather, the soil, the rain, is entirely reactive to human emotion.
The macro environment is basically completely dependent on your micro-emotional state.
Which is a lot of pressure, honestly. But to understand how that works, we really have to look at the formula this philosophy uses to describe how the universe operates.
Right, because there's a very specific breakdown in the sources.
Yeah, it breaks existence down into three interacting domains. You have heaven, earth, and humans. And it focuses on what each domain uses to sustain life.
So for heaven, it says it uses rain and dew.
Correct. And earth uses water and soil.
And then humans use, the text translates as virtuous transformation.
Virtuous transformation, yeah. Which sounds a bit formal, but
It basically means like treating people with kindness, right?
Yeah.
Warmth, genuine respect, the social glue that keeps humanity actually functioning.
that's exactly it. It is the energy of hospitality and moral warmth. Now, the framework suggests that if heaven uses its resources thinly,
Meaning sparsely, right? Like holding back the rain and dew.
yes, to create droughts and deserts, if that happens, the text says resentment naturally arises everywhere in the world.
Which makes sense. People get angry when they're starving.
Right. And similarly, if Earth uses its water and soil thinly, creating barren land, resentment arises in all living things.
Okay, so then for humans, if we use virtuous transformation thinly,
Meaning if we become cynical, cold, isolated, toxic toward one another.
then that same resentment basically ruins all human affairs.
Exactly. But those three domains, they aren't just operating in silos. They don't just happen to exist next to each other.
And this is where the core logic of this worldview really snapped into focus for me, because the philosophy asks a very profound question. Why would heaven and earth act thinly in the first place?
Right. Why would nature suddenly become stingy with rain or soil?
And the answer it provides is that the actions of heaven and earth rest entirely on the human mind. Like, nature doesn't just withhold rain on its own whim.
No, it is merely mirroring the generosity or the toxicity of the human hearts within that specific ecosystem.
So under this logic, the universe is essentially acting like like a highly reactive, incredibly strict parent.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Yeah, think of a household where the parents only provide a generous allowance and good meals and freedom, but only if the children are actively taking care of each other.
Keeping the house clean, contributing positively.
Right. But if the kids start fighting, acting selfishly, destroying the living room, the parents immediately lock down the resources.
The fridge is locked. The allowance is cut.
Exactly. Nature is the parent. and humanity's collective emotional state dictates whether the pantry stays open.
Which completely reframes the entire concept of natural disasters.
It really does.
We view a drought as a shift in atmospheric pressure, right?
Yeah.
Just science. But this worldview views a drought as the physical manifestation of a social drought.
And the sources use historical periods to illustrate this, don't they?
They do. There's this deeply revered era in Eastern history known as the time of Yao and Shun. It's held up as the ultimate golden age of peace.
And what fascinates me about the Yao and Shun era is how radical their generosity supposedly was. I mean, the descriptions say people walking down the street would treat elderly strangers with the exact same reverence they gave their own parents.
It was a profound level of community respect.
And if someone had leftover grain after a harvest, they didn't, hoard it in a silo to sell it at a premium later. They literally left it outside their doors so that anyone traveling through who was hungry could eat it.
Which is just unheard of today. And how did the macro environment respond to that extreme microgenerosity?
With perfectly timed weather, right?
Exactly. Perfectly measured weather. The phrase used in the text to describe the climate of that era translates to smooth rain and wind.
Because the people were open and generous, nature actively responded by delivering exactly what was needed right when it was needed.
The atmosphere was in total harmony with the social sphere.
But then you look at the other end of the spectrum. As generations passed, human beings grew more cunning, more tribal, more selfish.
The open doors closed.
Yeah, and the cosmos reacted to that toxicity with absolute devastation. We see references to massive, civilization-ending natural disasters.
Like the great floods found in both Western traditions, Noah's flood and the 9-year flood in Eastern traditions.
When humanity becomes fundamentally toxic, nature mirrors that by literally wiping the slate clean.
Which brings us back to that phrase you mentioned at the start, the idea of frost in July.
Right, the proverb.
Yes, the philosophy distills this massive cosmic feedback loop into a single, highly specific proverb. If one woman harbors resentment, frost falls in May.
And in the lunar calendar, May is the absolute height of the summer heat.
Exactly.
Wait, I need to push back on this a little bit because this brings up a massive issue of fairness to me.
Oh, for sure. It's a tough pill to swallow.
I understand the idea that if a whole society becomes toxic, the environment degrades. But this proverb is saying the intense, concentrated resentment of just one single person is powerful enough to block the natural circulation of the universe's energy.
One person's suppressed rage freezes the summer crops.
Right. How is that a fair system? Why does the macro environment punish the entire collective for the toxicity of one individual's mind? Like, we always say the phrase, spitting while lying down means it just hits your own face.
Right. Meaning your bad actions only hurt you.
Exactly. But this text is saying that emitting toxic energy doesn't just ruin your day or hit your own face, it disrupts the whole ecosystem.
It does, and I think it forces us to abandon this modern illusion of individual containment we all have.
What do you mean by that?
Well, we like to think of ourselves as separate, autonomous bubbles, If you are angry, that is your problem. But this framework argues that human consciousness is more like a shared water supply.
Oh, wow. Okay.
If you dump a barrel of highly toxic chemicals into a lake, it doesn't matter that it was just one barrel, and it doesn't matter that the rest of the lake is clean water.
The circulation of the ecosystem carries that poison everywhere.
Exactly. Resentment in this view isn't just a bad mood, it is a contracting, freezing energy. It literally halts the flow of vitality.
So if one person generates enough of that freezing energy, it physically manifests in the atmosphere.
Right, which is, I admit, a terrifying level of responsibility.
Terrifying is the word. Which leads to probably the most important question. If human emotion is literally powerful enough to alter the atmosphere, what are the physical mechanism behind this?
How does the thought get out into the world?
Yes. How is a thought in my head translating into a shift in the weather? And this is where we have to zoom all the way in. We are moving from the macro universe down to the microanatomy of the mind.
And the sources actually provide a visual for this. There's an image in the manuscript showing Chinese calligraphy that maps the anatomy of the mind.
And what's wild is that it's not an empty room that just generates its own contents.
No, not at all. The human mind is explicitly defined as 3 structural things: a hinge, a door, and a road.
Let's visualize that architecture for a second. The hinge is the pivot point, right?
Yeah.
The mechanism that dictates whether something is swinging open or slamming shut. The door is the physical opening itself. And the road is the pathway leading right up to that door.
And a road implies traffic. A road implies travelers arriving from somewhere else.
Okay, this is the part that really got me.
It's the crucial insight here. You do not generate your own thoughts out of thin air. Your mind is a literal doorway for invisible spirits, both benevolent and malevolent, to constantly enter, exit, and travel through.
This completely messes with our modern concept of free will.
It really challenges it, yeah.
Let's really think about this. You are driving to work, minding your own business, and suddenly a brilliant, life-changing idea pops into your head. Or conversely, you're lying in bed, and a dark, intrusive, incredibly destructive thought suddenly overwhelms you.
Just out of nowhere.
Right. We are taught by modern psychology that our brain chemistry just misfired, or that our subconscious bubbled up. But this framework argues that I didn't actually author those thoughts.
No, you didn't.
It suggests an invisible guest just walked down the road, opened the hinge of my mind, and stepped inside to deliver that specific energy.
You are basically the host of a very busy reception hall. And the size of the entrance to that hall depends entirely on the disposition of the host.
So if I'm a narrow, selfish, paranoid person,
Then your mind has a tiny, cramped door. Only the most petty, crawling energies can squeeze through.
but a generous, broad mind has massive, swinging gates.
Exactly. And the implications of this structure lead to what is honestly a staggering claim in the text. This internal hinge, door, and road inside you are actually described as being larger than heaven and earth.
Larger than the universe.
Yes.
Because the universe itself is reacting to what you allow to walk through that doorway. I mean, think about the last time you suddenly lost your temper in traffic.
Yeah.
Did that rage feel like something you carefully constructed and chose to feel?
Almost never.
Right. It felt like something violently swung open the hinge of your mind, walked in, and hijacked the room.
That feeling of being overcome by an emotion perfectly aligns with this architecture, which creates an immediate, very practical dilemma for anyone trying to navigate life.
How do you manage the traffic?
Exactly. If your mind is a cosmic doorway, larger than the universe, with a constant stream of invisible travelers walking in and out, how on earth do you manage it?
If you are running this cosmic hotel, you have to know how to evict the destructive guests and cater to the benevolent ones.
Which means this entire philosophy ultimately boils down to rigorous mental hygiene.
So let's talk about the mechanics of that hygiene. How do
Yeah.
we actually deal with these invisible guests on a daily basis? Let's start with the positive ones.
Okay, so the framework says that when a good spirit enters your mind,
Like when you get that sudden urge to help a stranger or a flash of genuine inspiration.
right, when that happens, you must serve that spirit as a teacher.
And serving them as a teacher requires an immediate sacrifice of your own ego, right?
It does. And this is where human arrogance becomes a massive liability. When a great idea strikes, our instinct is to immediately claim authorship.
We pat ourselves on the back, we update our resumes, and we say, wow, I am incredibly smart. I figured this out.
We take all the credit for the guest's gift.
Which is so rude to the guest.
Exactly. And the warning in the text is stark. It says, if you continually take credit for the inspiration brought by these unseen visitors, if you fail to acknowledge them and say thank you to the universe when that brilliance arrives, the good spirits will feel unappreciated.
Because they are looking for a gracious host.
Right. And if you are an arrogant host, they will simply stop visiting you. The road to your door will dry up, and you will be left entirely to your own limited biological devices.
So you have to cultivate a habit of immediate outward gratitude to keep the good guests returning. That actually makes a lot of sense. You want to create an environment where inspiration wants to linger.
But then we have to talk about the bad guests.
Right. What happens when the dark, cynical, fraudulent, or angry spirits walk down the road? Because misery loves company, right?
It sure does.
If you are constantly cynical and criticizing everyone around you, you are basically putting up a neon vacancy sign for spirits with that exact same toxic energy.
And once they step inside, the framework says it is incredibly difficult to get them out. It literally compares them to sticky phlegm caught in the back of your throat.
Ugh, what a visceral image.
But accurate, they cling to the walls of your mind. They do not want to leave because your resentment is their food source.
So how do you evict them? The method prescribed in the sources is meticulous, unsparing self-reflection. And I really want to emphasize the word meticulous.
Yeah, a passing thought of, oops, I guess I'm not perfect, is not going to work.
I love this part because it creates such a clear image of how mental evasion works. Think about an audit. or a police interrogation. A scammer, someone running a fraud, is absolutely terrified of a competent detective.
They hate specifics.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you just vaguely say to yourself, yeah, I'm a flawed person, I make mistakes, you are leaving massive vague shadows in your mind. And those dark parasitic spirits easily hide in those gray areas.
They thrive in your ambiguity. The gray area is their safe haven. If you don't name the flaw, you don't illuminate it.
But if you meticulously audit your own actions, if you sit down and say, I did this specific cruel thing to this specific person at 2:00 p.m. on Tuesday, I did it out of jealousy, and it was entirely my fault, you are flipping the bright lights on.
You become the relentless detective of your own mind.
And when the lights come on, those bad spirits scatter like roaches.
That is the exact mechanism of the eviction. You are starving them of their food source. Toxic spirits feed on denial, ego, and self-justification.
When you meticulously admit fault and take absolute accountability, you remove all the justification.
There is nothing left for them to consume, so they are forced back out the door. It is a painful process, but an utterly necessary one for maintaining the hinge of your mind.
Now, at this point, if you are listening to this, you might logically conclude that the best way to manage this cosmic doorway is to completely isolate yourself.
Oh, the hermit approach.
Right. If other people trigger my resentment, and if bad spirits are constantly trying to walk down the road into my mind, I should just go sit alone in a quiet room, lock the physical door, and meditate all day. I'll just guard the internal gate and shut out the world.
It is the most common trap in spiritual practice, the desire to just retreat. But the final, most shocking twist of this entire worldview is that you cannot master the invisible world if you withdraw from the physical world.
The two are inextricably linked.
Yes. The hinge of your mind is directly connected to the physical door of your house.
There is a really powerful historical anecdote in the text that perfectly illustrates this mechanism. There's another image provided in the sources showing people in white robes approaching a traditional building.
Yes, that depicts Sangjinim visiting the home of one of his disciples, a man named Kim Hyong Ryol.
Now, Kim was living in extreme poverty at the time. When Sangjinim suddenly arrived with his large group of followers, Kim was visibly distressed. His face fell, he was panicking because he had absolutely no food in the kitchen to offer these unexpected guests.
Which is a deeply relatable human reaction. Anyone would be stressed and embarrassed if a huge crowd showed up and the pantry was completely bare.
But Sangjinim actually reprimanded him for that reaction. He delivered a teaching that stated, "Opening the door and accepting guests determines your fortune. Your house must have many guests."
And he didn't mean that in a superficial Martha Stewart always have appetizers ready kind of way.
Right, no. The mechanics behind that statement are profound. This framework argues that when a physical person walks up to your physical door, they are never alone.
Never.
When you feed and welcome a biological human being into your space, you are simultaneously hosting their invisible guardian spirits and the countless ancestral spirits that follow them wherever they go.
This is where the micro and the macro truly collide. Every single person you interact with is just the tip of an invisible spear. They are accompanied by a vast, unseen lineage that spent centuries bringing them into existence.
So when you offer a cup of water, a warm smile, or genuine hospitality to the person standing right in front of you, you are not just executing a one-on-one transaction.
You are earning the gratitude of an entire spiritual stadium.
Think about how this completely flips the modern concept of networking on its head. We think networking is handing a business card to Bob from accounting, hoping Bob remembers us for a promotion.
Just Bob.
Right. But this worldview says Bob is trailed by thousands of ancestors. If you treat Bob with genuine warmth, his entire unseen lineage blesses you. Your physical hospitality literally summons benevolent spirits down the road through the hinge and into your mind.
But that same mechanism carries a massive, terrifying warning, particularly for the way we live today.
Because modern society is built on physical isolation.
It is. We live in high-rise apartments with heavy steel doors. We lock ourselves in. We actively try to avoid our neighbors. We put on headphones to ignore strangers.
The framework actually compares these isolated living spaces to prison cells. We are actively starving our spiritual doorways by closing our physical ones.
And the danger amplifies exponentially when you consider conflict. If you are cruel to someone, if you mock a coworker, if you cheat a stranger out of $20.
You aren't just bullying one isolated, defenseless human.
No. You are attacking a massive spiritual lineage. The teachings literally compare it to kicking a beehive.
Wow.
You think you are swatting one bee, but you are enraging the entire swarm, and they will flood through the doorway of your mind to exact a toll.
It completely reframes destiny. Destiny isn't written in the stars. It's written in how you manage your doorways.
Yes.
If you want to change your fortune, you don't need to embark on a solitary retreat to a mountaintop, and you don't need to perform expensive esoteric rituals. You just need to be genuinely hospitable and profoundly kind to the physical person standing right in front of you right now.
Welcoming the physical person opens the physical door, which instantly swings open the spiritual doorway of your mind to positive, life-altering influences.
It is such a beautifully integrated, deeply accountable system. The macro universe, the weather, the climate, the rain responds to the micro environment of your mind.
And the invisible spiritual world responds entirely to the physical everyday actions we take with our neighbors. Everything is connected through the hinge.
The core philosophy here boils down to a principle of learn first, enlighten later.
Right. You cannot thrive in an ecosystem if you do not understand the physics of how it operates. You have to learn the mechanics of the hinge and the road before you can expect to achieve any kind of true enlightenment.
And those mechanics demand absolute responsibility. Your mind is not just a brain. It is a cosmic doorway larger than the universe itself.
By changing your everyday words to be positive, by refusing to harbor the toxic resentment that freezes the summer crops, and by warmly welcoming the actual physical people in your life, you are managing the traffic.
You invite the right guests into the highway of your mind. And when those good spirits take up residence inside you, heaven and earth have no choice but to respond to that positive energy by providing harmony, abundance, and smooth winds in your life.
You are the host. You control the hinge.
It is a heavy realization, but ultimately an incredibly empowering one. We've covered a massive amount of philosophical ground today, from cosmic weather patterns to the meticulous auditing of our own flaws.
We really have.
To wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a final, lingering thought to mull over as you go about the rest of your day.
I think this material demands that kind of practical reflection in the real world.
Next time you are walking down the street and someone accidentally bumps into you, or a stranger stops you to ask for directions instead of just seeing an annoyance, or a random, isolated individual intersecting with your busy day.
Think about the invisible crowd of history and ancestry walking right behind them.
Exactly. Based on how you react in that split second, whether you snap at them in annoyance, or pause, smile, and offer genuine warmth, what kind of guest are you inviting through the doorway of your own mind tonight?